Hello everyone, welcome back to another Flesh and Blood video. Originally, this was going to be a video talking about the brand new Max cards, but since those aren't on February, we can't do that one just yet. So I decided why not take a look at the other Draconic Ninja hero, the hero that this channel was sort of built upon by Rising Rebellion, to see if the Hunted truly helped him out. And I think the short answer is a pretty resounding yes. But with that, let's get started with the deck list. Fi, Rising Rebellion, as you all know, is a 40 health, 4 intellect Draconic Ninja hero. He starts with a Phoenix Flame in his graveyard, and for 3, you can return it from your graveyard to your hand, and it costs 1 less for each of your Draconic chain links. Pretty simple. Fi's main weapon, the Searing Ember Blade, is going to be the main choice here to go along with the Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, since it's a pretty big aggro format, but this is a switchboard list on Harmonize, Kodachi, and Mask of Momentum, so you can do that if you really need to in some matchups. Of course, we still play the Flamescale Furnace because we don't really need resources off our chess piece, we just want the defense. Tiger Stripe Shuko because we can reliably trigger it pretty much every turn thanks to the Phoenix Flame being one of the 2 attacks required for it. And we're on Snapdragon Scalers over the Dragon Scaler Flight Paths, the new shoe, because we do play some cards that we do just want to consistently give the go again with the Snappies. Pretty simple going over the equipment. Fi is a deck that really hasn't changed its equipment since he came out. I guess Mask of the Pouncing Lynx... Well, no, actually, Mask of the Pouncing Lynx was printed before Fi came out, so really hasn't changed his equipment in a long time. It's all pretty much the same. Looking at the main board, we can already see that we have some new cards, but first I want to go over some of the stuff that's pretty much just a staple in the deck. Ancestral Empowerment, since you're a ninja, you want to draw through your deck and you want to actually land hits. It doesn't proc on every single attack, but a good chunk of them does. All of your Draconic Ninja stuffs, your brand, your displays, all your head jabs, really, it can proc on, so I do really still like Ancestral Empowerment, just because it can thin your deck down a little bit, and you want to find your power cards a little more often. Blaze Headlong, just because it's an 0 for 4. All 9 copies of Brand with Cinderclaw. We are playing Oath of Loyalty in this deck, so we do need Brand with Cinderclaw to enable us to play those cards on those turns. We do have some fealty generation in the display loyalty, but it does feel pretty bad to have an E-Strike or a Snatch in a hand that's an Oath of Loyalty turn and not being able to play it. So the 9 brands I do really like, as well as the yellow brands do work for your Shuko, so it's not terrible to play them. E-Strike just because it's an 0 for 7, or it can replace your arsenal. Lava Burst is just a good 0 for 5, a good tutor target with Pouncing Lynx. Of course, we're still on Salt the Wound, so that's going to be your main target on those bigger turns. Lava Vein Loyalty, because it's a 3 for 3. There is technically a better one in the Hunted, but since we're not playing the daggers, you don't really want to play it over Lava Vein Loyalty. I guess it is a may. You can play it instead. When I do upload the video, I will put Burning Blade Dance in here over Lava Vein Loyalty, because I don't think you need both. I'd rather have the guaranteed go again in like the Ronin Renegade or the Rising Resentment, and I don't remember if you can flick Kodachis, but why would you ever flick? I feel like if you're flicking the Kodachi, you're in a pretty bad spot. Although, to be fair, it can win you a game. So, when I actually upload the deck list, I'll change it to Burning Blade Dance, just because it is technically a little better, as it has that bonus effect. Still Rising Resentment, we do have some 1-cost cards, it's just Spreading Flames, really. All the other 1-cost cards are kind of out of the deck, even though we are on Ignite, which might make you think we should be on a few more 1-cost cards. Ignite is really powerful because it can let you come in with Searing Ember Blade for only 1, which means you can pay for it on a full red hand. And it lets Fi's ability cost less, so if we have a turn where we go, I don't know, Rising Resentment, Ignite, we can use Fi's ability to get a flame right away and then play something like a Lava Burst if we only have like that 3-card hand, which can be pretty nice. We'll talk about Ignite later, though. Rising Resentment, Ronin Renegade, just head jabs. Snatch, on-hit draw, pretty simple. We're on Snapdragon Scalers pretty much for this card. It's just a really good card in Fi. Ending your chains with it, have the ability to continue. Spreading Flames is your main power card, giving your Draconic attacks +1 while their base power is less than the number of Draconic Chainlinks you control. This one's one not played in Syndra because all of her cards are pretty much 3 already, but that's perfectly fine. Salt the Wound is just your main chain ender. You don't need 3 because it's not always the best. Sometimes Lava Burst is pretty good, but on those turns you're tutoring with Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, it's most likely going to be a Salt the Wound. And then just for some of our blues, of course, we do have Nip at the Heels, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but we do play Rowdy Locals, which is just one of the best fight cards in the game since you get that free discard off of your Phoenix Flame. And we're still playing 3 Warmonger's Diplomacy because it does help us versus some of our bad matchups, mainly the Azalea matchup can help us pretty well. And what other blues are you really going to play? They're just 3-block blues that pitch to Kodachis or your Searing Ember Blade later. There is another version of this deck that plays the new cards Art of Dragon Fire, Art of Dragon Blood, but this is not that version of the deck. Instead, we're just opting more for the lower to the ground 0-cost attacks. Display Loyalty is a 0 for 3 go again that makes a fealty token if it's our second Draconic Chainlink, which is useful again on Oath of Loyalty turns. Fire Tenant Strike First is not a Draconic attack, but gives our next Draconic attack +1, making it pretty much an 0 for 4. Ignite, I already mentioned why this card's good earlier. You can play it to activate your Fi ability one card sooner, which lets you play 3-card hands a little better. Also, you can Ignite into your only 1-cost card, your Spreading Flames, to hopefully give you a longer turn without having to pitch resources. Yes, going Ignite Spreading Flames does mean that the Ignite won't get pumped, but if you're going Spreading Flames into Ignite, it won't get the pump anyway since it's only the second chain link, and the only thing that gets pumped on the second chain link is the 1 power attack since it needs less space power than your chain links, which means you can go Ignite into Spreading Flames, and then any 2-cost attack gets pumped, and then for the rest of the turn, pretty much all your attacks will get pumped. So Ignite into Spreading Flames isn't that bad either. The Oath of Loyalty is sort of that main Draconic card that's every Draconic hero wants to play. It's an 0 for 4, but you have to play it first, and you can only play Draconic cards after it. Really important with the fealty tokens. Generally, your fealty tokens are going to be used on your reactions because you can't make the reactions Draconic with the brands. But you can still use the fealty tokens on things like E-Strike, like Snatch, to, let you use them on your Oath of Loyalty turns. And then the final new card in the main board, at least, is Nip at the Heels. This is I guess I had to talk about that. Nip at the Heels. This is a simple attack reaction that is actually pretty good. It's a 3-block blue 0-cost, which means it's great with Kodachis. It gives any attack with 3 or less base power +1 power. So it's sort of like an Ancestral Empowerment, but it works on a lot of different things. You don't see this one in Syndra because she's a deck that wants to play pretty much all reds, but Fi is a deck that does generally tend to want resources to swing with his either Kodachis or Emberblade, and he can turn blues into Emberblade swings. But if you need to get damage through, especially for something like your Mask of Momentum, or even a hit for Pouncing Lynx, Nip at the Heels is pretty good because it lets you target any of your head jabs, which, having 6 copies of Ancestral Empowerment, even though it doesn't draw you a card like Ancestral Empowerment, is really good. It's playable on things that aren't ninja cards, like Lava Burst, like your... I guess, actually, that's the only target that Ancestral Empowerment would hit. I thought there would be 1 or 2 more. It hits Rowdy Locals. That's the other one. Hits Rowdy Locals. But Nip at the Heels, even though you don't play it very often, especially on like a Rowdy Locals turn, you're not going to play both of these. You're going to pitch one. But Nip at the Heels, I think, is a really good card in Fi. One of the better decks that can actually use it. Finally, let's go over the inventory, starting with the equipment. 2 copies of Harmonized Kodachi just because of your Mask of Momentum. Mask of Momentum is very powerful. You want to bring these in versus decks that are going to try to block you a lot, or decks that, might not block you at all. Sometimes decks will be good at blocking and still be aggro decks. Those I would bring in the Pouncing Lynx and the Emberblade, but decks that are terrible at blocking, or decks that block a ton, Mask Momentum is pretty good against forcing them to block and still getting damage through, since you have more attacks with the Kodachis. Or you can just keep this and burst them, but we're not on Tenacity, so that can be pretty bad sometimes. We're on Spellfreight Cloak just for the Wizard matchup because this chess piece is only here for blocking, and we're not doing blocking. And Tide Flippers for just 1 AB versus any of our Runeblade or Wizard matchups. The rest of the board is pretty simple. Oh, I forgot to talk about, we have 1 Phoenix Flame main board. Why 1 Phoenix Flame main board? Because you don't need more than 1 main board. We're not playing any Phoenix Flame synergies. We do have a second Phoenix Flame in our sideboard. This is going to be for matchups that try to remove our Phoenix Flame from the game. Mainly our Mystic matchups because they have Passover, and all of them play Passover. I would bring a second one in against Ira because I think Ira is like the only deck that can actually play something like Gravekeeping. And versus Vynnset, you might want to consider it because I've seen Vynnset playing the card that removes 2 cards from a Banished Zone and does 2 Arcane if there's a action and an attack and a non-attack. But that can be an extra Phoenix Flame as well. So do be careful with those, but the second Phoenix Flame just for those matchups. 3 Shelter from the Storm, 3 Wax On. First Wax On, it's a very aggressive meta. There's a lot of 0 cost go wide decks, so Wax On is very powerful. We're not on Wax Off in this list, but you could be on Wax Off over some numbers of these Warmongers and these Nip at the Heels. If you really wanted to and play the main board, that's perfectly fine. Shelter from the Storm, I can't believe there's a D-React that's more than $100. That's actually crazy. You can play Sink Belows instead. That's a perfectly fine replacement. Shelter really is only better versus like just your Runeblade matchups pretty much. But you kind of need it for those Runeblade matchups because Runeblade is like insanely broken. But Shelter from the Storm can be replaced by Sink Below if you don't have Shelter from the Storms. And then finally, 3 Command and Conquer. Of course, you know, for this one, you can play any other 2 for 6 replacement instead. This is just here for a little bit of extra disruption. This can be Breaking Point instead as well. Poppers aren't really too important. Yes, the Prism matchup, you are going to bring in these CNCs, but when are you going to play against the Prism matchup? And also, you probably lose that matchup anyway, even with the CNCs. Also, CNC works pretty nicely with Ignite. You can play Ignite, break a fealty in response to the Ignite trigger, and then play a CNC by pitching 1 red, which is pretty good. But other than that, CNC is just some disruption. Again, you can play Breaking Point instead if you really wanted to, if you don't have the CNCs. Actually, that's probably what I would rather play. If you don't have CNC, instead of another 2 for 6 disruptive card, play Breaking Point. But I like CNC just because you can play it without a wide turn. You can be on a 2-block, 2-card hand. Like you block with 2 cards and then you have a 2-card hand. I should just 2-card hand, whatever. You can have a 2-card hand with like a yellow or a blue and then just send the CNC and be happy with it. So which is why I like CNC a little more. Pretty fast going over this deck list. Not a lot of Fi's actual gameplay patterns have changed, just the deck has. There are different versions of Fi. As I said, there's an Art of Dragon Blood and Fire version of the list that tries to make a little more cards draconic. But if you're planning to do that, why wouldn't you just play Syndra? I feel like Syndra does that way easier. This list just wants to do what Fi does best, which is just consistently beating the opponent down turn after turn, getting them low enough to where you'd lock them out at the game. Plain and simple. Fi, if you were starting the game, Fi is a perfect hero to do that. You could easily sub some of the expensive cards out too. I swear this is only that expensive because Shelter and CNC are in the sideboard. Like, you go down like $600 or $700 if you take those out. But other than that, that is going to be the end of the video. Again, like I said, a pretty fast one since we've talked about Fi a lot on this channel, and we probably will talk about him a little more. But with all of that, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the April Fool's video on Tuesday. I was honestly considering doing a Herbert deck review. Maybe we'll do that one a little later down the line because I think that one could be pretty funny. But next week, hopefully the Max Armory deck cards are up on Fabry and we can take a look at Max the Hype Nitro. If not, not sure what we're going to do. But until then, I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.